Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 720. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me today, I have my regular co-host, Bob Plankers. Today's Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You saying it's April 30th. I'm wondering where April went, but then again, I also wondered where March and February went as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm doing all right. Had a good time at Connect last week. And,
Connect,
good to see everyone.
Connect had 305 people register, I think, and 287 showed up. A lot of good vendors, a lot of good activity. Frank Denman did an awesome keynote. Like, that was fun to listen to him. I finally got my head around AI and the AI runtime. I just want to always say we care about the runtime mostly, right? Like, how many GPUs do you need to run your AI runtime for your company, right? So learned a lot about that.
Stable and secure. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So,
and how do you allocate it to different data scientists, right? Like, so his keynote was great because I finally understood like runtime requirements, and then how many runtimes do you need, and our data scientists mucking around with their own private runtimes in order to tweak things. So it was really good. So great session, great conference, 3 days. Unconference the first day was fun, where we just had lots of people discussing AI, and another one on VCF. So, if you know what an unconference is, it's basically it's chatting, it's birds of a feathers, right? With a little bit of structure, right? Notepads on the board, yellow stickies, and then just questions and answers from experts and the community. So that was fun on Wednesday. Like that.
Yeah, and that was really cool. Just the ability for people to ask questions, and then everyone answered. Everyone got involved. Some of the questions really tax my knowledge of VCF. I'm more of a vSphere guy, and then people in the audience stepped up and answered questions, and we had discussions about security, pros and cons of things. We had some disagreement, and it was good. Everyone got to see some of how the sausage was made. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, good times. And then, of course, the event 2 days was great. And Hawk came at the end, did a keynote at the end, which was also fun. It felt like a conference, right? It felt like a mid-sized to small conference, which for me was great from a community perspective, because you got a couple days to engage with people, right? And have conversations. And then they were hanging out on beanbag chairs and chatting. And so we had a lot of fun with that. We did some code labs. Certifications were running heavy the whole time. I think the certification lab was packed. I think they had over 105 people sit for certifications. Want to guess what the pass rate was? Drum roll.
80%.
42%. 42%. Ooh, yeah. So the feeling was, well, it wasn't as big a cakewalk as what we might have thought it was.
Well, that's consistent with my experience. I took it and I passed by, as the saying goes, by the skin of my teeth, and I think I got 10 more points than I needed. No, I got 340 out and I needed 300. I think that's what I got. Right. And a lot of questions. I got questions about the Kubernetes stuff, and data services manager and NSX and things. And so, it was tricky at points. You really have to read the question as well. And so, because it'll have parameters there, it'll have conditions, all system designs have conditions on them. And, especially things you're deploying 2 hosts, and what sort of storage can you use, for example. And vSAN's not going to be an option necessarily there, so you have to think about stuff like that. And so I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, on the show today, we're going to be talking to Garvit Kataria. I don't know how to say his last name as always, but he's a software engineer at Intuit, where he's done data center automation. So kind of a code talk here a little bit, where we're going to talk to him about how he's automated Tanzu, his Tanzu environment. He did a session at in Vegas last year, Community 1270 LV. That's his session, and thought it was relevant because we did call for papers. We got the community theater, we got the code theater, we got the hackathon coming up, and thought we'd have him on and talk a little bit about how he's automating things at Intuit. He has some great insights, so we'll talk to Garvit in a little bit here. Before we do that, let's go to Corey and do a drive-by to Utah, see what's up there, and then we'll get to Garvit.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of vExpert news. Sub-program applications are open until May 12th. Awards will go out on or before June 2nd at 5 p.m. Call for blogs is out for VMware Explore Las Vegas 2025 registration. So bloggers, read my mail that went out earlier this week for the details on this. And then blogger passes, our applications are open until May 30th at 5 p.m. And those who receive the passes will be notified on or before June 13th.
Nice. All right. Well, there we go. Let's get some more vExperts doing stuff, making things happen. I know that on the Explore site in the news a little bit, the Explore type reg opened up today. So you can go reg for the conference now. And they have a great community tab on the Explore site this year that talks about VMTN. It has our new VMTN landing page. I think it's community.broadcom.com/VMware. So congrats to Julian Grew for getting that site up, and it's on the Explore site, as well as the vExperts are also listed there, as well as vMug and I believe Code and the hackathon. So reg is open. You can go drive around and look at all the cool stuff we've got there, links to our programs. So again, this year is supposed to be a community conference, community focused, and we're excited. I know that vMug's going to be there. We're going to have a full vMug party this year. We're going to have vMug's going to have their own booth. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to be there. Corey's going to be there. So we're looking forward to it. And after Connect last week, which was a small event, I would say it's fun to get together and talk about all the changes. And then, obviously, new version of VCF I think will be announced by then, so a lot of good sessions will cover that. And yeah, so good news there. Other than that, I think besides Connect and Explore happening now and the reg opening up, I don't think that's all I got for news. Bob, anything else we should cover before we get to Garvit?
No, I can't think of anything. Have been no security vulnerabilities that we should all note. Yeah, I don't know. Patch your stuff. All right. Same thing I always tell people.
Yeah, same thing. Patch your
Garvit's smiling. He's probably been involved in that mess before. But yeah, let's talk about observability.
Let's talk about Garvit. And Garvit, why don't you say your last name? And we always on the community podcast give it like a 3-minute conversation of who are you, what have you done in your career, how'd you get here, and what have you been working on? So why don't you give us a little bit of who you are and what your career arc has looked like and what are you working on?
Absolutely. Thanks for the great introduction. So I'm Garvit Kataria, and I've been working at Intuit for 2.5 years now. And I think since starting off my career, I was really fascinated by the cloud space, and there was no going back. I just entered it and it got more and more and more exciting. So I work at Intuit, and we operate a really large fleet of Kubernetes clusters. So you can think of hundreds of clusters, thousands of instances, and these are spread across multiple regions, accounts, and it's very difficult to get a bigger picture, bird's eye view of the picture and the infrastructure, and kind of trying to figure out what's actually going on. To give you a perspective, you can think of a car dashboard, but instead of small dials, like you have some disconnected cages, or maybe a spreadsheet which is the tuples get updated every 5 seconds, and hey, now you are at 90 miles an hour. I'm sure it's not a nice place to drive, and you would be in a mess.
So before we get into that, I got to question you with it Intuit. So Intuit runs QuickBooks and it runs TurboTax and it does that. And a couple of years ago, they started moving all of their products into the cloud as cloud services. So when we talk about what workload you're automating using Tanzu and Kubernetes, I assume it's the cloud service platform for all the Intuit products that I use on occasion, right? Between TurboTax and I believe that QuickBooks now is all online, right? They don't even have an offline version now. So you sign up. So is that the kind of workloads that you guys are running? Is the core application products?
Absolutely. You won't find anything online. It is cloud native.
Oh, interesting.
As
All right.
it should be.
Right. So really kind of like Facebook and Google and others, when you have these online services, you've got thousands of machines that have to handle that workload as it's all hitting your cloud services. So I assume that's what you're talking about here when you're talking about automating Kubernetes and Tanzu. It is automating the infrastructure that's running your applications, which are now built in Kubernetes, or at least run in Kubernetes. I don't know how they're built, but
orchestrated by,
orchestrated by, right.
Yep. So like essentially, like even if it's on Kubernetes, there are like tons, like it's essentially running on instances and getting a picture of what is going underneath, like how many instances are running, what images are running, or like what is reaching compliance deadlines. So this is something which is very hard to figure out as the scale grows. Like let's say you have one single cluster, okay, you can log in and look at it. What if you have hundreds of them? So it's a very time consuming process which would lead to errors. It is manual and also very difficult to manage. And I think one of the biggest thing is that it doesn't provide like historical context. Like you can't track your progress over time. So this was a problem which we were facing at Intuit.
Yeah, well, and it just occurs to me as you're talking too, Kubernetes, it's a dynamic environment. The idea that even if you could get a grasp on, monitoring these things and whatnot. So I'm old school sysadmin guy, like, you deploy Nagios or, ARIA operations or, pick your monitoring tool. And, and that doesn't work in these environments because of the dynamic nature of them. Even if you could figure out how to instrument them at one point in time, am I correct in saying, somebody's going to deploy something again, and screw it all up? It's not a static environment at all. So.
Absolutely. That's why the historical comparison and the historical data becomes like even more useful, because these deployments are not ad hoc. Like they're very well planned deployments. It goes through the whole process. And once you have this historical data, you can actually pinpoint, hey, this was the actual issue, or like, hey, this is how I can save cost, or maybe it can be used for capacity planning based on the trends. This is what we have seen earlier. So like maybe we can take these steps to kind of predict the load, or like kind of gear ourselves up, make these updates next time this happens.
When you say goes through the whole process, what do you mean by process? Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, okay. So I mean, at any big corporation, you can't just push out changes. You have to kind of make them sequential. It's a process. Like the changes are batched together, so it's more effective and easier to track. And let's say you have a change, it would first go on like end-to-end environments, then pre-production and production. So like anytime these changes are there, you have like data to kind of compare and see how is it actually performing over time before the actual users get the whole set of changes.
And then is the ability for a change to progress to the next phase or whatever, is that gated by what the monitoring systems, the observability, these metrics, does that help make the decision there?
Absolutely. This is the data which is being used to kind of make the decisions. And since it's real time, I mean, by real time, like at least it's getting there like every couple of hours, it's very easy to track and take informed decisions.
Cool. And is that automated then, or is that something a human comes along and says, this looks all right?
Like the decision making process is like the final decision process is like up to a human, because we don't want to automate that, because
Yeah.
yeah, but the whole process of
Yay, humans are still in the loop somewhere. So
yep.
turn it over to AI.
But yeah, I can also touch base on that later, how we have actually also leveraged AI to like also make it a lot easier.
Oh, that might be, yeah, we should get back and come back to that, because yeah, that is really interesting. But so you're collecting, so as a developer makes a change and rolls that into production, and as it gets it closer and closer to production, gathering the metrics and that, and then at some point a human being makes the go no go call, whether it goes into full production or not.
Absolutely. So it's like gathering the tons of data, putting into a nice user interface with historical comparison, getting a bird's eye view. It's like, on Google Maps, you see a country and then you keep zooming in, and
Yeah.
you get like a better and a closer view. So consider it like that. So, on the bigger picture, what's going on. You need more information, zoom in. Until and unless you can get the finest grains of information. So the use case is for like someone who could be a CTO to someone who is working on the low level engineering stuff.
That's really cool. The ability to scale and the 10,000 foot view for people that want that, and then getting really into the weeds if you need that. A lot of performance troubleshooting that I've been involved with in the past. You need to be. It's very detail oriented, that sort of thing. So, what are you using? What sort of tool set are you using to do all of this stuff?
So like Chanzu has been really like kind of, I think, instrumental in this about for like gathering tons of data, and there are like some custom scripts which scrape the clusters and get the necessary information. So I would say it's a combination.
Okay. And those scripts are things that came with the Tanzu. What is it? Tanzu Wavefront, the
Yeah,
observability stuff.
yeah. So these scripts were like because it's a custom infrastructure, it's not like completely there, but the combination makes it work.
So you had the framework there, and then you could elaborate on it. What you want to collect, and just finding a programmatic way to gather that and send it back to the monitoring infrastructure. I keep calling it monitoring and observability. It seems like Kubernetes has come up with new terms for everything, but because it's different than it was. Observability is just monitoring, but more, and automated, in my opinion. Does that seem right?
Yep.
And so, interesting. So
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about hackathons and how you got into writing code. I think you do have some tools that you've built, right? That I believe you talked about in your session last year, right? And then how did it come about, and was hackathon part of that?
So
did you guys hack and come up with ideas? Like, because I know you didn't join our hackathon, but you have done different hackathons along the way. And I was just curious, is there a tie between getting people together and learning how to automate, and then what you guys built internally? And I forget the name of your tool that you presented last year.
We call it Infrastructure Navigator.
Okay, Infrastructure Navigator. And how did that come about? Was that like a project that you guys were assigned to, or did it organically grow through trying to automate things?
So it came up as like a problem where like I was, kind of gathering some data, had to gather some insights, and Google Sheets has an limit, like beyond certain records, it actually stops working. So like we hit that limit, and I was like, this is definitely not a nice way. And my manager asked me, hey, can you compare like what was this like 3 days ago? So I was like, oh wow, like now I've just pasted some information and it's just taking forever to load. So I've been part of many hackathons before, like, and I love the idea of taking something from like on the whiteboard to a real product really really quickly. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. Like I have the data, why not kind of put it in a nicer way and think of making it big, something bigger, something which would add value to the company. So Then there came a week at Intuit where we can just work on pretty much everything. We call them global engineering days. So this week is basically 1 week of hackathon. You get tons of food, like you can basically work or learn on anything you want. And basically this week I collaborated with one of my team members, and we were like, okay, let's come down to Mountain View, whiteboard some stuff, and kind of see how it goes. And essentially the the whole project like didn't even last for 2 months. Like we were in production, it was there, and we completed it. But the 1 week of hackathon was the kind of
The
where
beginning.
the beginning and how we actually got into it.
Yeah, your sort of proof of concept sort of thing to see if this thing is going to work. Is it a crazy idea? Is it a crazy idea that's going to work? It's really nice to have that dedicated time to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So
I saw some of your dashboard stuff that you talk about, and the car dashboard, and visualization turns out to be something critical. And I know we do it inside of obviously our own products, where visualizing helps you deal with a ton of data, right? To be able to kind of grasp what's actually going on, right? So how did you guys figure out how to invest in visualization? Did you guys pick a visualization library in order to figure out how to do this, or what was your strategy for visualization?
So the strategy was quite simple. So we thought, okay, let's make some good UI, and kind of try to get some nice visuals. But then I was chatting with my team, and I was like, that will take a lot of time. Why do you have to invest so much time? So why can't we use something which is already built in and easy to see? So that's why we landed on ClickSense, and it was a charm. Like it worked very easily. The components were really clickable. One could just, if I want to drill down to a particular instance or a cluster or anything, it was super easy to use. And we had like good amount of data which backed it. So I would call it laziness, which got us here. And yeah, we just started
again,
using it.
as an old school sysadmin, laziness is a good property in system operations people, in my opinion. Like don't do more work than you need to. But yeah, so the ClickSense thing, you can probably gather, I'm not super familiar with Wavefront. Is that built in, or is that another component that you added to the solution, or is that just
No,
part of Wavefront?
it's another component which
Okay,
was added on the top for like the visual beauty and kind of seeing things much easier.
cool. Yeah, well, I hope you don't mind. I found your the recording of your session from last year. It's out on
Yeah, I don't mind.
PowerPoint being what it is, but to give people a sense, if you're watching on our YouTube stream here, a sense for what it looks like and the data you're talking about, and things, the different regions and instances and all of that stuff. And so yeah, being able to get a feel for it, number of instances per cluster, you've got a lot of data here. I guess this is Wavefront itself. So
Mhm. Yep,
and
that's the point which is behind the action. So it's like, I would say, multiple layers. Like first is like gathering the data, kind of making sure that it's in the data lakes, it's saved somewhere, so it's there for the historical comparison. Tanzu like
nice.
plays a good role in that. And then like the top layer is actually kind of cleaning it up and showing it in a user-friendly way, so anyone can access it to the level of depth they want to.
Yeah, nice. And so all this stuff is clickable. You can drill down in it, and
Yep.
very cool. Yeah, well, and then if something's going wrong, being able to get to this, when incidents happen, there's that fog of war, not to use like military terms or whatever, but there's a fog, you don't know what's going on, having the ability to get there quickly, and especially the historical stuff too. Like, you keep talking about that, and that's so important. Is this different? Is what we're deploying now different than running differently than it was last week, and is that expected? And that's the thing. Some things it would be expected. I'd assume that you're making a change in performance, it's going to differ, but and that's probably where you get
Like
the human factor comes in.
been quite instrumental in figuring out some incidents. Like sometimes we would be stuck, and I would join a few incidents and I would say, hey, this dashboard is in action and it's being used and it actually solved problems. So
nice. It's a good feeling, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yay, the thing I built, people are using. So,
yeah. That's one of the things that I'm curious on. How many people in IT are supporting your Tanzu instances, and were they happy to see this? And does it get use, right? And how much sustaining do you have to do once you put a tool like this in production? Because it's always fun to build it, right? But then keeping it supported and doing versions of it and then rolling it out to your infrastructure team, right, is always one of these things that you look at tools. And I guess I'd ask you how that's playing out.
Yeah, like I don't know the exact size of the team kind of which manages Tanzu and Wavefront, but I'm sure like they're not really large. Like that's what I know about that. But and yeah, this project kind of graduated quite a while ago, and actually no one actually worked on it. Like since everything is automated from data collection to visualization. So like I sometimes pitch in if there is like, need to like add some newer stats or something, but that's really rare. It's been just going on.
turnkey sort of thing, and just fire and forget sort of, that's actually really cool. I've in the past I've said there's a return on investment for tools, and so often you see tools that the return on investment, it's a one-to-one thing. You basically traded maintaining the thing for maintaining this other thing, and it's not a force multiplier. It's not helping you get more stuff done. It's just different. And so what I hear you saying here is this is a force multiplier. It is something, it adds to your understanding, but isn't a drag on your staff time necessarily. It's not. Yeah. And so that's actually really, really neat.
Mhm.
Is it just collecting? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bob. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, is it just collecting performance data then, or are you collecting other metrics or other things from your environment?
I think one, like more than performance data, there's a lot of security compliance data which is also being gathered, and
Interesting.
it helps us stay within the compliance because it is very easy to see, okay, what is going to be out of compliance 30 days from now or 60 days from now, and like necessary actions can be taken. For
So you're
example,
predicting the future as well, and not just historical data, but wow, very cool.
yeah, like for example, for something which needs to go to production, there is a higher timeline which is needed because it needs more vetting. So,
Mhm.
kind of keeping a bigger buffer and ensuring that there is enough time to make sure that the changes can go in. So, it all comes back. Like we can see, okay, this is the current state, and like maybe 2 months from now, this is something which should be out of compliance. So maybe this is so like in somewhere in the middle, we have to ensure that okay, this should not be out of compliance.
Can you give? Is it possible? I don't want to ask confidential Intuit things or whatever, but can you give an example of something that might be out of compliance as you move forward? Like
Oh, mhm.
what's a stat that might be? What's a thing that might be like that? You know?
Like a simple example would be like EBS volumes, which are like attached.
Okay.
So like as AWS upgrades them, so do we have to do it, and like we sent some internal deadlines on how to do it, or let's say the AMIs which have to be rotated time to time because of
Okay.
security issues. So that is something
Oh,
which becomes very
okay.
visual
That
and
makes
easy to
sense.
track.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just ongoing maintenance, because and that makes a lot of sense to me thinking about the sort of DevOpsy nature of this whole thing, like that you're really not, you're not to get these updates, you're just instantiating new copies of things and and letting Kubernetes deal with it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I appreciate that example. And yeah, I was trying to think of something, and cloud stuff, the AWS changing things, which is sort of the way cloud works, right? Like having to deal with that too. So
Yeah, everything is dynamic.
yeah, for good and for bad.
So always looking forward, are there any particular challenges you guys are seeing in the Tanzu environment that that you're looking at for future kind of projects?
Uh, Not really. I think it's been there were no big challenges surprisingly, and there's I think we are definitely always looking how to reduce our costs. That would be one.
Oh, crap. Sorry. I accidentally hit play on your video. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, say that again. Cost management, always one of the challenges, right?
Yeah, that is something which we are looking into and kind of trying to connect the dots. Like there are always some advancements, but costs still goes up. Like you have more infrastructure, more people, more products.
Are you guys running on-prem in your own data centers?
No, everything is cloud native.
Cloud native doesn't tell me on-prem or off-prem. Cloud native just says how you wrote the application. So we have cloud native in data centers, but are you on AWS or Azure or some other cloud?
Yeah, we are on public clouds.
Okay, right. All right, that makes sense.
But you're spread out all over the world, right? Then,
yeah,
too, right? So public clouds, is it all just AWS, or are you using local, sovereign clouds and things like that as well in other countries? Is that something you could share?
I can't talk much about it, but
okay, I'm just curious. Yeah. So
yeah. Fair enough.
Well,
right.
a lot of EU countries have data sovereignty things going on, and so being able to track that and deploy more locally, so. And again, for better or for worse. Hopefully you didn't have too bad of a time in Spain and Portugal this last week here.
It is fine.
Right. So you went to Explore last year, did this paper. Any thoughts on the value of presenting at a conference? Was there any value to it in your career, or was it just fun to present and get feedback? I know you did a community session, which must have been like a 20-minute session. So,
right.
But at the same time, last year we didn't give you badges or anything. It was just you were already at the show, and you managed to get a session and present. Are you thinking about another visit this year? I know community sessions are going to get badges this year, right? So if you actually get a community session, you get a badge. But I don't know if you've actually worked on anything useful, right?
Oh yeah, like I did not know about that, but there are definitely some cool projects which I've worked on. Maybe I should put in a proposal. That would be really cool.
Yeah. Definitely reach out to Julia Klaus if you've got an idea. I think the call for papers is now closed, but there are a couple slots open. So if you have an idea, send it over to Julia. We'll take a look at it for sure.
Absolutely.
And see what you want to do.
I get some special treatment, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Right.
Yeah. Well, special treatment can go both ways though, too. So yeah, look out. Be careful what you ask for. Yes.
Yeah. Where are you located? We usually ask where people work, right? Are you in the US or are you somewhere else?
Yeah. I'm in the US. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, all right. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, so probably somewhere around San Antonio Road, right? If I were to guess, but
yeah.
Absolutely
right.
Nice big corporate headquarters there. Nice place to be in California. Other than now that we're all coming back to the office, traffic is getting a little trickier day by day in the Bay Area. So you got that going for you, right?
Yeah, I think I have learned how to play with time, so not too bad.
Right. Very nice.
If you can shift your times, that's.
So when you're forming a visit to a hackathon, right? So I'll just pick your brain a little bit on this. Like, is it just you and a buddy? Do you ever, get a couple other people on a team? What's your strategy for deciding when to go to a hackathon? It's when you have a night, evening, available. I mean, just to give people a sense of what it's like to, do a hackathon. You're a software engineer, I assume, so therefore that's you get an advantage over our IT listeners. But what would you say is your strategy on that, and will you participate in additional ones going forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can actually share my experience. Recently, I went to a hackathon in San Francisco, and it had been a while. I'd not participated in one, and I was like, since so many new tools have come up, maybe I should give it a try. So earlier, generally, I would pair up with someone who is like essentially a software engineer or has some good coding technical knowledge. But this time, I paired up with someone who was basically from business background, did not know about coding at all, or like very minimal knowledge about coding. And the surprising part was we could still collaborate very effectively. And I could see that instead of seeing from like a myopic small technical perspective, I was seeing things from how to scale it, like what would be the user experience like. So I think definitely with AI and some new cool tools coming up, it is much easier for anyone to tap into hackathons. And uh, generally I do not go with any idea and kind of try to go with one buddy and find a one new person, like a team of three. So I kind of try to mix and match, uh, and yeah, then just hands down decide on an idea. Based on the idea, kind of find the third person. For example, I wanted to experiment with something which was like virtual reality related, but I didn't have much knowledge about it. So I went with my buddy and I like posted in the team channel, hey, anyone has these skill sets? Like I have some cool ideas. And then we got together, like found the right skill sets and developed something. And yeah, won a bunch of money. So that was quite fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Like I like that. Are the hackathons up in the city? Do they go all weekend? What's the format of these guys these days? I know the Explore one that we do. We kind of look for teams, and then we give them 2 months to work on the project, and then really at Explore we just come back and present what people had. And there's a on-prem one. If you have, we only have 3 or 4 hours in the evening. You can do a short one, but most of the teams have been working on it for a couple months. They come together and then they just present what they built. Just wondering what the format you've been visiting are.
Yeah, the format which I have been visiting, it's mostly like the whole weekend, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Starts Friday evening and kind of ends Sunday evening.
Right, right. And you're timed with other question. I've noticed a lot of people present what their ideas are and they have like good slides on that. But then if you start looking at their code, it's like, well, we didn't really get to that and we didn't get to this. Like, how much of what you present is actually working?
Yeah, like I think just a slide deck mostly doesn't do the job. Giving something tangible is much more easier. I I've never presented just slides. It's always been a working demo, and I think that's the way it should be. Like now that we have so much leverage ideas, there's so much tons of open source code lying around. Like
Should
any,
be able to glue it together, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good idea
Yeah.
to get it working end to end.
Well, and you had mentioned AI earlier, so I've got a question about these hackathons. Is that starting to be a thing? People talk about vibe coding and all of that sort of stuff. And vibe slop apps and things like that. But how much of that is playing into these hackathons now, as even just a prototyping sort of activity?
I think the moment Andre Karpati like coined the term vibe coding, it's been
Yeah,
all over the Bay Area. So I
yeah,
think 50% of the hackathon now start with the term vibe coding. And
yeah,
I think it's a great way to, hackathon, the word hackathon seems sometimes daunting. You need to be a coder or you need to be really kind of technical. So
yeah.
it gives a vibe to anyone that, hey, you can just come and give it a shot.
Yeah, it's faster. Getting an actual idea up and running is a heck of a lot faster, when you can just get ChatGPT or Claude or whoever, whatever, to write it. I don't know if Perplexity doesn't do it, but you get what I'm saying. And so hackathons are allowing this now. Is that part of the?
I don't
thing,
think
or
they're allowing.
is
I
that
think
the whole
they're
point? Or
promoting it. I think they heavily kind of advertise it, and also they promote it that don't spend a lot of time where it should not be spent.
well, that's just good advice for life, basically. But yeah, doubly so when you're on a clock and you have to show a working demo. So yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that's
What was the term you used? What
vibe coding,
and
where
vibe
you go to,
coding? Yeah, tell
yeah,
me
you
what
just
that is.
basically
Yeah.
get a large language model to you tell it what you want, and I want to, well, I
Yeah,
want
but
an application.
where does the name Vibe come from? I figured out it was using AI to make your code, but why do they call it Vibe? Where does Vibe come from? Anybody?
Like a very famous person just coined it, and it became ballistics.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one of those. You got to go look up Urban Dictionary. What's the origin of vibe coding? But okay, so it's basically using. And I noticed that with our hackathon, like 3 of the 4 finalists had all used ChatGPT to build the code, right? Or at least build the slides and the code. Some of them built the slides and the code and everything using ChatGPT, and other ones just wrote the code with ChatGPT or did the slides. So interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So
what does it say?
Yeah, this is basically, I think this is the well, it's been around for a little bit longer than this, but this is the guy that Garvit's talking about, the that sort of coined the term vibe coding. Just
neat.
Forget that the code even exists. You just ask a large language model to spew out, like to build it. Like I want an application that does X, written in a certain language. You should actually also ask it for no security problems and that take all normal security precautions and things. That's been an interesting one. But yeah, I don't know.
I know you can ask it to rewrite it and do other things or make it better, make it more robust, comment it, all the other things. So, make it more complex, make it do logging, so it's just coding has all really become how to engage with your AI properly to get your results, right? With the idea, right?
The idea of prompt engineering, this is just, prompting a large language model to give you what you want, and, we talk about languages and things like that, but you can do this with Excel. You can do it with PowerShell. I talk about that, like even at Connect this last week, I mentioned that people who want to automate things in VMware environments and that, but maybe are a little new at PowerShell, just these large language models are the coworker that you can't annoy, like with all of your programming questions. And so asking it for a script that does, checks some parameter on your whole fleet of machines, hey, it'll do that. It'll spit that out. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting. So thanks for humoring my questions about this. I just, it occurred to me that, like this thing, a hackathon has been just forever changed by the idea of vibe coding. So
yeah, like a ton of times, like my colleagues have commented, hey, you write amazing, function descriptions and doc strings. And I'm like,
well, thank you. I do it all myself. Yes. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, it was your idea to ask the AI for it, right? So
yeah, but in reality, aren't even when you're writing, real tools or for production, not just for hackathon. I mean, that's how we're all writing code now, right? Even everyone do that. If you get permission from your corporation to use an AI, right? Maybe you have to use a private AI, right? Like I know for vSphere, we use our own AI to do that, but it's the way you're writing code these days.
Yeah, there can be some intellectual property concerns depending on where you're using it. But I think, in Garvit's case, where it's all, some of the stuff might all be internal, if he's using it for work, right? Like it's all internal, won't see the light of day. So,
Yep. All right. So as we come up to the top of the hour here, and I will be respectful of your time, we do ask what gets you excited in the future. Anything that you're looking forward to for the rest of 2025 and 2026 that you'd like to share with us from either coding, data center automation, Tanzu, or life in general. Like we give you a sense to. I always ask people like, what gets them excited and what makes them worry. So I'll hit you with that.
Like,
awkward pause.
I know.
Right.
I think Bob has something.
Asking you, man.
I care about androids and AI in my Android, and when am I going to get my little robot that'll mow my grass and cook my dinner and do my laundry?
Those are super. I've been looking at those. Those are super interesting. The ones that'll cut patterns and names and shapes and faces into your lawn and things. Yeah. So yeah. Garvit, is there anything that you're looking forward to in 2025 here? So.
I would say I'm pretty excited about self-driving cars. I'm not a fan of driving, and just the idea of sitting in a car without a steering wheel kind of really excites me. It's there, it's getting there, but I just want to relax, recline my seat, and listen to some nice music, and it just wakes me up and says, "Hey, you have."
It's kind of like the train experience, except way more flexible.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I was in I drove up to Sonoma and did a wine festival this weekend, and it was like an hour and 45-minute drive, and I was getting tired. And the car I was in was a high-end Quattro car that had lane control. It didn't self-drive, but even lane control when you're tired, right, is kind of a nice thing on the way back, right? You've had some wine, you're not drunk or anything. You're below the 1.0 level. But you've been out all day and you're tired, and it's like kind of nice to just sit and go, okay, if it's noticing that I'm drifting, it'll. I hate that when I need to do a lane change. I hate
guardrails,
that. Right? Yeah. But nonetheless,
I always seem to be fighting it.
I normally turn it off, except when I'm tired. Then I'll go, okay, I'm just gonna kind of go in the thing and let it do its thing. Then I kind of went, and if I had a Tesla that had complete self-driving, I would have probably let it drive, right? And just said, here, go. I'll keep my hand on the wheel and I'll let it do its thing. So
yeah, people say the full self-drive on Teslas is really cool. So
yeah, I still like Androids better than that, but Garvit, I can understand your point. I don't like having to do my laundry and keep the grass mowed. So I want an Android walking around doing that for me, right? Like in the end.
We're just getting closer and closer to the movie iRobot, man. So
yeah, I think so. I have a feeling we're like 5 years out, right? Like by the time you look at stuff coming out from the world and you put AI in here and AI is writing code and rewriting code, and pretty soon it's going to be able to do everything. Put it in a robot and it'll be your best friend, right? You remember the pet rocks, where people got connected to pet rocks? And there's a name for when you are able to get connected with an inanimate object, right? And people actually had relationships with their pet rocks. So I can see where you're going to start having a relationship with your AI too, right? You're going to name it, it's going to become your friend, and you're going to be able to,
So many comments. But we got a comment coming in from YouTube or whatever from Bruce Wayne, Batman, noting that it's Chicago 2035. So we've only got 10 years to get this all figured out so that it can become true. So
I think it will be. Yep. All right, Garvit, where can people follow you? Are you on X, Twitter, or LinkedIn? Or if people wanted to follow you, are you on any of the social channels? Do you blog? If somebody wants to see what you're up to, how would they follow you?
Absolutely. You can find me on X. So my handle is Garvit K. So just my first name and the letter K. And it's pretty easy to find me on LinkedIn. Probably just, I think, one Garvit Kataria exists. So you will hit it.
So Garvit, Garvit, K. So at Garvitk. Give him a follow, give him a like, and tell him you saw him on the podcast, right? Maybe he'll retweet that out. So cool. And then obviously, LinkedIn, it's Garvit, probably easy to find. Good. And then finally, we do stream on youtube.com/vbarbecue, BARBECUE. And we always ask, you're in the Bay Area, you ever get any barbecue done? And if so, what do you barbecue?
Ooh, that is a pretty easy one. Always go for Korean barbecue chicken,
Oh yeah,
marinated in like sweet and savory, soy, ginger, blend like, and just grill it up.
solid answer.
Nice. Yep, that's good. I have not done any barbecue because I was down in we actually made steak on a grill. If you know Miami, I was down in Miami for vacation and we were out at Stiltsville. And Stiltsville are like these houses at the end of Key Biscayne, right off Miami, where they put houses kind of like hunting houses or cabins out in the water on stilts, and they have docks and you can have boats. And my nephew has a membership to the Stiltsville. We went out on a boat and took our meat and cooler and went out on Stiltsville, watched the sunset, fed the fish from the docks and made some barbecue out on there. Just grilled steak, right? Nothing special, but the sunset was stunning from out in the ocean, Caribbean, the kind of low, not very deep water. So it's turquoise blue, and nice green blue. So very pretty.
Excellent.
Yep.
Very cool.
All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour. It's almost 1:00 here. So every Wednesday we try to do a podcast and talk community topics or, code hackathon. And Garvit, thanks for showing up and talking about us. Thanks for doing the session last year and looking forward to seeing what else you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Bob, Corey, Julia,
Yeah.
Klaus, thanks a lot. See you again next week.
Thank you.